Hello and welcome to Radiance Revealed, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jen Haley. I'm a board-certified dermatologist, fitness enthusiast, nutrition expert, and global explorer that over the years has uncovered that your skin is a true representation of your internal health. Each week, we will chat with leading health, wellness, and even spiritual experts who will reveal secrets to true health and vitality. My goal is to help you change small habits to give you the power to create a more balanced, aligned, and elevated version of yourself. Now let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Radiance Revealed podcast. And this week on my podcast, I have Dr. Matt Pywell. Dr. Matt is an award-winning consultant plastic surgeon on the GMC Specialist Register in the UK, and he's renowned for his ability to transform complex scientific research into practical, advanced longevity treatments. His accolades include prestigious Ian McGregor Gold Medal and a distinction in international education, highlighting his commitment to effective teaching and learning. He is a leader in longevity medicine, and Dr. Matt expertly bridges the gap between cutting-edge research and clinical application. He's a principal investigator for a number of National Institutes for Health and Care Research trials, and he has a longevity clinic on Harley Street in London, and he's really at the cutting edge of advanced treatments. He has a clinic. He also teaches a course through Apex Medical, and we're going to discuss some of that today. We're going to discuss the rise of longevity clinics. We're going to discuss his take on longevity medicine and how it relates to plastic surgery and what got him interested in it. So I'm super excited for this raw, authentic conversation, and thank you all for being here and joining us. Enjoy it. So welcome to the show, Dr. Matt. So glad to have you all the way from the UK.
Hi, Jen. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Right. So I've been following your work for a while, and I noticed that you have quite a few courses out there, but you're trained as a plastic surgeon. So as a plastic surgeon, what got you interested in longevity medicine?
It's a really good question. So I was certified in plastic surgery a good few years ago now, and was doing a number of different cosmetic fellowships on Harley Street and out in some of the outskirts of London. And I was seeing a lot of patients. We were performing things like liposuction, for example. We were taking out potentially 5, sometimes even 10 kilograms of fat, sending people on their way. And sure enough, 6 months, 12 months later, they would come back again for more liposuction. And the more you did it, the more scar tissue they got, the worse results they got, the more skin changes they got, and they just looked worse and worse. And I was like, this isn't what I signed up for as a plastic surgeon. I wanted to make people look and feel better about themselves. And I said, there's got to be a better way to do this. So around 5 years ago, set up my clinic, One Life, where we were able to really focus on actually optimizing people's health from the inside out, which actually started reducing their weight. So rather than putting on that fat, they were able to actually start losing the fat where they hadn't been able to do in the past. But also things on a metabolic level. I know, Jen, you talk a lot about skin health and actually looking at people's skin and trying to target the aging process within skin before they get to the point where they need to have invasive procedures to help correct skin issues.
Yeah, that's really great. I know we were talking a little bit offline about this because, we're both physicians, and I think when you're young, you're idealistic. And I used to think, oh, if I just learn all of the information, I could heal everyone. And unfortunately, that's not the case. And Western medicine is often reactive. Like we can treat a disease or something specific. Although I think those of us that really want to help people, we the whole being, and we think, well, what can they do at home in between seeing us that can play a larger role and have that compound effect of really making a difference in the long run, not just depending on us to take out the trash or, in your case, removing in the consequences of a poor diet and lifestyle. And I think a lot of that has to do with, well, people wanting to take agency for their own health. That's really important because the information is in all of it. I was a nutrition major undergraduate, and some of the most unhealthy people were the nutrition majors. Like they had all the information, but they didn't do anything with it. So there's a certain point where we have to take agency and responsibility for our own health. But to your point, like what are some of these things that you particularly noticed around longevity and lifestyle medicine that makes a huge difference in how somebody shows up uh, in their physical attractiveness to the world?
Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? Because I want to touch upon a point you mentioned there, Jen, about having the whole time in the world. When you're at medical school, you think, great, I'm going to have all this time to go away, research the best answer for my patient, and then come back. And I'm sure you call it the same, but in the UK we call it evidence-based medicine, and that is the core underpinning of the way I wanted to practice medicine. And I learned that. I remember learning it in medical school and learning about what this evidence-based medicine principles were. And there were these pillars of evidence-based medicine. The whole point was patient came to you with a concern. You went away, researched the literature. You distilled that down into easy to understand, bite-sized sort of chunks so that the patient could then take it away and implement it into their life. It wasn't just about providing medications. Obviously, I sort of lasted about a month or two in my work in the NHS, and I quickly realized that I was never going to have that time to answer every single patient query by going away, researching it, and coming back with an answer. But what I was being really fortunate to is in the last 5 years while I've been running my clinic, and particularly the last 2 years as I've set up Apex Medical, is actually I've had that time and I've taken that time to myself. And it began really sort of during that COVID time where we had a lot more time to ourselves. And I used that to really dive in and find out the answers to a lot of these questions and sort of say, well, we're giving away a lot of medications to patients, like statins, for example. And like, do we need to be doing this? Like, what is the actual evidence behind it? So, researched a lot about LDL cholesterol, and now this is becoming more and more people aware of this now, which is great. But 5 years ago, I was telling to my patients, look, LDL cholesterol isn't as bad as you think. It's some of the varieties of LDL cholesterol that we need to be more conscious of, that they're the ones that actually cause disease. And testing has now caught up with that, as in part because of COVID. And we've got providers out in the UK that thrived during COVID who are now offering lots of longevity-based testing. And they can look at things like the different parts of cholesterol to see which ones are actually raised for the patient and do they actually need lipid lowering agents. And the majority of the time they don't. And the majority of the time they can actually be optimized through diet and lifestyle. HDL cholesterol is the other end of the spectrum, and that is almost always high in someone who's got high fatty intake. So high, when I say fatty intake, I mean very processed fats, so artificial fats, these sort of vegetable oils and these things. If people have this sort of intake in the diet, you see an association with a raised HDL cholesterol, and that is quite dangerous because a lowered HDL cholesterol. So that is quite dangerous. It's not having that protective HDL cholesterol in the body, and that's where you get the ratio. And now traditionally, it's been talked about LDL and HDL cholesterol as being a ratio as a good to bad cholesterol. Now, 5 years ago, again, I was saying to my patients that this isn't always the case. It's actually more important to look at the triglycerides. The triglycerides can be raised quite severely in processed foods. So people are eating very sort of high fructose corn syrup, for example, or vegetable oils, or very sort of processed artificial foods can raise those triglycerides. And that is a better reflection of health, that ratio, the triglyceride and the LDL. So I'm focusing a little bit on cholesterol here, and that is a really the key reason that is that sort of answers to you in terms of how do people show up. I think understanding more about that balance of fats within the body, we find a lot of people who are kind of victims of these very low fat diets, and the skin and the health can sometimes reflect that because they aren't getting the essential fats that we need to maintain the skin. If we think about all of our skin cells, they are made up of a membrane of fatty acids. It is vital to have these fats. If we think about the hormones that we are making, things like testosterone, estrogen, for both men and women, these hormones are based on cholesterol. And so therefore you need to have fats in the diet. And we are coming out of sort of being a bit of a victim of this whole low fat phase that we've gone through, globally, where we've had low fat yogurt, low fat cheese, low fat this, and actually we're starting to reprogram and rethink that actually fats aren't actually as bad as we say that as was originally thought. And it's only really the process, those sort of artificial fats, they are the ones that really need to be sort of cut down in the diet. But actually the more animal-based fats you can have and the more fats from things like nuts, these are very, very good for you.
Yeah, that's great. I thought you were going to lose everyone for a moment there, diving deep into the. But I mean, to your point, there's some really good points there. Like our hormones, our skin, our brain, they need fat. And I studied nutrition undergrad at Cornell University, a great place to study. Every single thing I learned is not true now. So it was the low fat generation. And I never felt worse in my life. I was always hungry. My skin was parched and dry and dehydrated. And I think we often live in this like black and white, very dogmatic world, especially in the nutrition world, where people think like cholesterol, oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
Not, okay, go to someone who is an expert in this field and they will distill it down and say, okay, this is great. We need to work on this. Like your HDL is a little bit low, you're perimenopausal. Let's look at like your estrogen levels. Like there's all these sorts of nuances that you're talking about, and not just saying that fat is good or bad, because it's like, what exactly are you talking about? And what are we relating it to? So I want to go back into the longevity clinic. Like what is a longevity clinic? How is it different from functional medicine or regenerative medicine? And what can people expect if they're seeking out a longevity clinic?
Yeah, so longevity medicine is a relatively new term. So even when I set up my clinic 5 years ago, it was more lifestyle medicine was a term that was being used quite a bit. Longevity medicine still hadn't made such a big surge in popularity, but now longevity medicine seems to be the word that's used to describe everything from wellness clinics doing IV drips all the way through to follistatin gene therapy and everything in between. Now I think everyone has a different definition. Now, I like the idea that longevity is defined as anything that improves the patient's quality of life and quantity of life. So improving the years, the healthy years that they have in their life, what we call health span, and also the number of years in their life as a side product of that. Now, I talked about evidence-based medicine. There is no evidence out there that shows any intervention is going to prolong anybody's life in humans. There have been lots of studies in animals, but the fact is there's not enough time to do these studies to find out how long things actually interfere. So we have to sort of infer things from animal studies or from biomarkers that we know can predict some aging and some disease. So we talk a lot about reducing the risk of diseases as we get older. And with longevity, it's anything really to increase that health span or to really optimize that health. Now, when we talk about what is longevity clinics in related to things like functional medicine, now there's a big crossover. So you've got functional medicine, regenerative medicine, lifestyle medicine, and a whole host of others that I haven't named here that all cross over and interact in some way, and they all have a relevance to longevity. But to pick on two of the two popular ones, so lifestyle medicine, very popular here in the UK, is all about that diet and lifestyle optimization. It's doing things and talking to your client to understand what they can do in their life to reduce the risk of illness. But we can go further than that in longevity medicine. Longevity medicine is a medicine by definition, and you are able to start thinking about medications on top of this. So rather than just focusing on diet and lifestyle, we just incorporate that as our foundation. So that is our sort of step one to longevity medicine. Step two is all about hormone optimization. So hormone optimization is dealing with menopause, it's dealing with andropause, low testosterone levels in men, but also in women, and also things like thyroid dysfunction or cortisol stress response. So optimizing hormones within the body. The reason for that is because step three is one of the most popular steps, which is weight loss and weight optimization. Because weight optimization needs to be understood that it is a complex thing within the body. The reason a lot of people don't lose weight is because they've got issues with their hormones, or they've got fundamental issues with their diet and lifestyle, and a misunderstanding about what they need to have in their diet and lifestyle in order to lose weight. So when we have this sort of tiered approach, we say, well, step three is weight loss. We can actually take patient weight loss, take them back down to the fundamental diet and lifestyle, build up to hormones, build up to weight optimization. And then we can take them further. And our step four is all about performance optimization. So mental and physical performance. We talk through nootropics and nutraceuticals that can really optimize people's mental and physical performance. But again, you can't do that until their metabolic profile and their weight is optimized in step three. And then once you've done step four and you've optimized them, then we can finally talk about cellular aging. And now that's where a bit more regenerative medicine comes in. So that's where you're looking at potentially gene therapies, red light therapies, sauna use, hyperbaric oxygen. plasma exchange. All of these things come into the mitochondrial function, the hallmarks of aging, and the cellular aging process itself. So what we are doing in longevity medicine is connecting the dots. It's sort of bringing all of those things together. So you've got the lifestyle medicine and all the way through to that regenerative medicine at the top of that pyramid. And we sort of describe it in those sort of 5 steps building up to form a pyramid structure. So achieving healthy aging is the pinnacle of that.
Okay, so you're doing this in your clinic, and then you're also doing this with Apex Medical for people that can't see you in your clinic.
That's correct. So I set up my clinic about 5 years ago. So it was just before COVID hit. We had great sort of in-person clinics, wonderful. Obviously, about a year or two into that, we had to switch over virtually, and we set up a lot of virtual consultations, which people sort of took to obviously very quickly because of the situations we were in. And when we set up a clinic, we established that sort of 5-step approach, and it helped clients understand where they were currently and the journey they had to go on. So it helped put everything into perspective for them to say, right, okay, I want to optimize my weight, but I can see the picture you're drawing for me, and I understand I need to work on that foundation, because if I don't build on that foundation, it doesn't matter what other medications or what supplements or nutraceuticals I take, it's not going to help give me the performance I want, or the weight I want. And the same goes for performance. So people take loads of supplements. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry taking supplements, as you know, and people just cram themselves full of supplements. But if the pathways aren't there to utilize those substances through the right diet and lifestyle choices, it's just wasted money. So it really has to be utilized, those supplements. And that's why we talk about more supplements in our sort of stage 4 and performance optimization, physical and mental, and the healthy aging. And when we were designing the courses to train clinicians to do this, we found it a really nice structure to follow, because when you're doing longevity medicine, I remember starting out and I was like, there is so much here. There is so much here. And I think I've actually presented a slide in Dubai at the Arab Health Conference just last week. And I put up a slide with everything I could think of that is encompassed by longevity medicine. And we had over 100 different text boxes there with things that could be counted as longevity medicine. And the best bit about it is all of those things, be it bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, or be it metformin and therapeutics, or be it intermittent fasting, all of those things can be structured into that 5-tier approach. So intermittent fasting can be put into their diet and lifestyle. Metformin and therapeutics goes into step 5, the cellular aging pathways. And obviously bioidentical hormone replacement therapy can be slotted in at step 2 into hormone management. So it just gives a structure. And what we've seen from clinicians and indeed lay people who are coming through our courses is they are just reading it and they're watching it and thinking, I can finally understand how all these pieces of the puzzle go together, because it's just such a minefield out there otherwise.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to get caught up with all the sexy stuff and the plasma exchange that people are posting online, but it's like we were talking about offline. You can do all the plastic surgery you want or all the skincare and procedures that you want, but if you're not taking care of yourself from the inside out, you're not going to get the results you want. So, okay, so let's just play this game. And we're going to do me. So I
Okay.
come to you, 53-year-old. I feel healthy. I love my weight. Hashimoto's. I've been on Nature Throid for 15 years. Stable, doing well. Don't ever need an alarm in the morning. Sleep pretty good. Have good energy. But I want to continue to be this way for 40 more years. Where do we start?
Fantastic. So we've got a 5-step approach with all of the patients that come to our clinic, or indeed all the clients, the well clients we have. And there's a distinction here, because functional medicine is very much treating patients for illnesses, whereas longevity medicine is very much treating clients to optimize their health moving forward. It's very proactive. So it's trying to switch that sort of the terminology. But all of the clients that come into our clinic, we have a set pathway for them. So it starts out with a comprehensive intake form that you need to fill out. And that is going to target all of those 5 steps that we've just mentioned: the diet and lifestyle, hormones, weight, performance, and cellular aging. And it will identify any issues that you find that you have within yourself. And it's more about your own reported outcomes, your own reported measures. So, what is your satisfaction like with your own sleep? How do you manage stress? What is your weight? What is your BMI? What's your body fat index? What is your body fat mass, if you've got it? All these sort of things we try and take in intake form. Now, that intake form then gets reviewed by our clinical team. We will look through that and we'll say, right, based on this intake form, we need to do this set of analyses. So we will work out the investigations that we need to do in order to get out the right information for this person. Now, there's a question on the form, obviously, for budget. So budget, might well be dependent on that. And we find that's a very important topic to have a conversation with your clients about, because if you create this amazing treatment plan or investigation plan that doesn't fit their budget, there's no point doing it at all. So we sort of set that for them. We can go through it. Sometimes we'll need to pick up the phone and have a phone call with that client to understand, is there something we didn't quite understand the intake form? Is there something else we need to clarify? There's this test or this test, which one would they prefer? Sometimes we need to do that. Most of the time we can do it from the intake form. We would then have a battery of investigations for you. So that can range from, so almost everyone gets a continuous glucose meter in our clinic, because that is an amazing tool to use associated with a food diary. So we do that. That gives us so much information, and it also gives the client so much information to see the choices that they're making their food and the direct effect it's having on their body. So we analyze that. We then look at blood testing. So blood testing is a staple of what we offer. We look at anything throughout those sort of steps. So we talked about diet and lifestyle, but we look at hormones. We look at metabolic profile. We look at all the things that are surrounding a metabolic syndrome. We look at the whole scope of the different risk factors for that as well. We look at the performance optimization. So we look at, for example, omega-369 concentration index, and we can then sort of work out balances of this. We look at lots of other blood tests around what could be causing things like brain fog or issues surrounding performance. We then look at the actual aging profile itself. Again, we look at the risk factors for disease, so liver disease, kidney disease, cardiac disease, and we'll look at what the overall risk factors are for this. For men, we also do prostate screening, for women, ovarian screening, and that also gives an idea for the aging process itself. So we look at those 5 steps on the investigations. I could go into a huge amount of detail, but I don't want to bore you. I don't want to bore your listeners, but we can do anything in there. So we can do gut microbiome, we do DNA analysis, both chromosomal but mitochondrial or gut microbiome, as I say. We can do DEXA scans, are very popular to really get a good idea about body composition analysis. After those investigations, you then come for your consultation. So when you come for that consultation, you've seen all your investigations. The clinicians had a good amount of time to go through your intake form and through all of these investigations and create the shell of a treatment plan. And then the consultations then split into 3 parts. And the 3 parts are, where are you now? Where do you want to be? So what is your driving factor? And we talked about this offline, Jen, but a lot of people's driving factor is social connection. It's doing one thing or other to actually get there and socialize and communicate with people. And they might want more energy to do that. They might want to be less stressed to do that. They might want to be in the gym more. They might want to look better. They might want to have more mental clarity. Whatever it is, you've got to find out why they want to do it. And then the third part of the consultation is that treatment plan formulation. So creating that treatment plan with the client. So we do those 3 steps. So we might have a treatment plan in mind, but actually it is informed by the first parts of those consultations. It might change completely, but normally it's usually based around the treatment plans created before the consultation based on the investigations. Then once we've done that, we create that treatment plan, which is our next step. We consolidate that with the client and we work out what's going to be afforded for them, what sort of steps they want to do it in and how long time period they want to do it over. And then we get them to sign up for an ongoing health membership. And this is where clinics are finding the business model to be very profitable. So the people that we train are setting up these memberships, so just like gym memberships that people sign up for. And they can be quite intense in the beginning and they can be quite expensive in the beginning to really get your health optimized. But then they sort of go, right, okay, 6 months, maybe you're targeting to try and lose weight for a wedding, for example, is a common thing that we see. After you've hit that target, great. We then just get you onto a regular membership where you have a bit of an MOT, a checkup with the physician or the doctor, and a few blood tests or a biological aging test or a DEXA scan sort of every 6 months or every 12 months, depending on what the client wants.
Okay, this is great. So many things to jump into. Okay, so I just want to take a step back with the CGM. So for those of you listening, most of you know what that is if you're following me, because I always show you how I put one on. But I want to dive into why does a continuous glucose monitor matter? I I just want to have you explain that. Why does it matter how we monitor our glucose? What kind of effect does the sugar have on our body?
So I'm going to start this with a story about a conversation that happened between me and my father, if that's okay. So I was sitting there having a conversation with him, and he's done fantastically well. Don't get me wrong. A year ago, he was um, a bit overweight, napping on the sofa, not particularly much energy. And a year later, after he started one of our protocols, he's in the gym 4 or 5 times a week. He's playing golf. He no longer sleeps during the day. He's now started renovating another part of his house, and it completely transformed. And he's like, but I still have this weight up. I can't budge. I can't get rid of it. And I sat down with him. And I was like, Dad, your issue is sugar. And he was eating a panettone. Yeah, I don't, panettone. I'm assuming you do very luxurious
I know
cake
what
left
it
over
is
from
because my
Christmas. Yeah.
yeah,
So he left over from Christmas. Yeah, he'd sat around to from us. He's like, well, I better open this and eat it because otherwise no one's going to eat it. So he
that's
sat down, cut
okay.
himself a big slice, and he's eating this panettone. And I was sitting there watching him, going, "Yeah, your issue is sugar." And he replied to me, blank face, dead serious. I don't eat sugar. I never put sugar in my coffee and my tea. I never add sugar to anything. I don't eat sugary, sugar added fruit juices or anything. I just don't eat sugar. And I said, Dad, you're eating panettone right now. That cake has got a very high concentration of sugar. And then we sort of went to dissect everything that he's eating and the amount of sugar that has in it. And he was just really sort of taken away. And that's sort of one of the spectrum that people don't understand how much sugar is in things. And then, some people, and your listeners, I'm sure, Jen, will know panettone or cake has got a lot of sugar in. I'm quite embarrassed that my father still doesn't know that after a year, a year of spending time with him. But he's always been quite resistant to changing that dietary aspect. And having a continuous glucose meter actually shows the effect that your intake has on your own blood levels. And not only is that important, it's important for a number of reasons, but it's important because it shows the client that is what I'm doing to my body. And if you show them the evidence, which is out there, to show that every time you have a sugar spike, or the more sugar spikes you have, and the higher the sugar spike, the more you're causing inflammation in your body, the more you're aging, you're sending your cells down that aging pathway every time they divide. And if they can then associate the two in their head, they think, okay, my sugar's spiking here. I'm starting to age a little bit. This is translating into an aging process. Then they can start appreciating the damage that they're doing to their body. So it's a really good educational tool to show clients what they're doing to their body when they eat things like cake, or when they eat things that might have hidden sugar in, they don't necessarily know has sugar. And cake's a bit of an extreme example, but things like muesli that, a lot of people think, oh, great, muesli is really helpful for me. I'm going to reach for my bowl of whatever brand it might be. I'm going to eat it and I'll be, fine for the day. And then they're wondering why their levels are crashing, or their energy levels are crashing sort of, mid-morning or late morning. And then you put a CGM on them and you show them that sugar spike after they've had their muesli, and you show them an idea that it gets, a few hours later as it crashes before lunchtime. You show them why they then get the cravings to have lunch because they're feeling hungry. They're losing that, they're dropping that sugar level. And then you just show them essentially, you're trying to play catch up with that sugar level then all day. And then I bring out my sugar monitor, and I have almost always, I would have one sugar spike a day. So that is my sugar spike where I load on with my greens, my veggies. I might on some days have a sweet treat or something. Well, very rarely a sweet treat, I must admit, because I just don't have a sweet tooth for it anymore. But something that might contain carbohydrates, I might have on occasion, sort of more things like maybe a bit of bread, like brown rye bread or something like that. But normally it would just be a window where I'm eating vegetables or something that's quite nutrient dense. And I'll show that to my clients, and I'll put theirs and mine sort of next to each other and show them, if I showed you this, I'll show you mine, and I tell you that you are suffering hunger and cravings and low energy levels, whereas mine are rock steady. I'm not suffering any of that. I don't even necessarily feel hungry. I have to force myself to eat once a day because I don't necessarily feel hungry. I'm not getting that trough of that low sugar level. And it starts educating them and getting them to understand. So I think that's a really important point is education. But the second point is that We recommend general advice generally, and Jen, you're probably like this as well. In the when you're trained, you are trained to offer generic advice based on research statistics that are based on 95% of the population, the statistically significant proportion of the population, correct? And we don't can't work like that anymore. We've got to be more personalized. And that is where longevity medicine comes in. It's much more personalized, proactive approach to healthcare. Now, it wouldn't be longevity medicine if we just gave the same treatment plan to everyone. We've got to tailor make it. And if you eat a certain aspect of food, it might be a salad, for example, you might have no sugar spike whatsoever. I might eat a salad and I might have a really high sugar spike because of the way, one, the gut microbiome is formed, but the two, the cellular pathways, my genetic pathways, and how I process those foods. So it actually allows you to personalize a tailored plan. So I've had people who have come to me who've gone out for a steak and chips and they've been absolutely fine, never had a spike. They've had a salad and they've had really big sugar spikes from it. And then it's sort of like, hey, look, let's look into your gut microbiome. Let's look what there. Let's try and broaden the fiber sort of intake you're having, the different vegetables, the different colors in your diet, and trying to broaden out that microbiome. Let's do a DNA test. Let's look at the pathways that you have to see why you're responding in such a way. And then you can tailor make your treatment plan to that patient so that you're not just giving everyone the same treatment plan.
Mhm. Yeah, that's such great information. I love the CGM. I think it's such a great tool. And I think that the minute we're born, we start cooking ourselves from the inside. And the more sugar we have, the more sugar spikes, the quicker we're going to be cooking ourselves or aging. So the more we can control the sugar levels and the glycemic load and all of that in our body, just the slower we age, basically. And that's to your point of why it's so important to check it out. And I mean, I don't have great genetics. If I have rice, which most people would not consider sugar, my glucose spikes in the US numbers to about 250, which is really high. And I wouldn't have known that where if I didn't use the CGM. Whereas if I have a piece of sourdough bread, I don't have the spike. But what I've been able to do over the last 5 years of using this tool intermittently, maybe once every 6 months, is to correlate how I feel, like you mentioned, to that food and know that it's because of that food and what it's actually doing on the inside of my body. And then it allows me to pivot and adjust to be more balanced where I'm not getting hunger at 3 o'clock in the afternoon at all, right? At all. So I think that that's really great. I keep going back to the fact that you're in England. And if somebody wants to do longevity clinic as a patient, there are a lot of places in the US and they don't do it the way that you're describing. It's more like a $50,000 workup. And they want you to do every single, CT scan and cardiac scan and all of this stuff. Even it's more of a blanket thing. So how do people get started? Is there a course, or can you work remotely, or is there a network of people where they can get started? Because I don't think we really have an established protocol that everybody agrees upon or a standard at this point. So, like you said in the beginning, longevity does not mean longevity. It's just a word that people throw out there. So, where does someone get started if they're interested in, doing the best for their health?
Yeah, and I think the key thing is education here, and it's learning about it's taking charge of your own health, and it's learning about what can actually affect yourself. You don't need to necessarily spend any money; you just need to educate yourself and learn a little bit more about your own health, so you can start making some changes. With a very small budget. Now we work with Julie Gibson Clark, who I know you know and are good friends with as well, and she's absolutely wonderful. And she does all of these amazing changes that don't cost the earth, a few $100s a month. And she's had biological aging tests that have shown that she's aging slower than Brian Johnson. And what a great sort of claim that is. And it's backed up by science that she is doing things that don't cost the earth. She's not, transfusing any blood, or she's not doing extreme gene therapies or anything like that. She is just doing simple diet and lifestyle interventions. And I think that's what we noticed with One Life and with the Apex Medical as well, is that we can make small changes for clients in their life that would have profound effects if they've really bought into it. And so it's really for us, the most valuable commodity is actually the patient buy or the client buy-in. So really trying to actually get them to really engage with the whole program. And that's one of the key things. Now, and I've seen the longevity clinics you have in the US, and I've seen them that they exist in the UK as well, and they exist globally, and they tend to be a sort of one-stop sort of shop. That people come in, they have this whole battery of tests, they get a protocol sort of written out for them, and then off you go. That is you to sort of to go away and do it. And where this sort of more modern approach to longevity medicine is different is it is the main source of income for the clinics, but also the main source of improvement for the client is the ongoing support, and it's that ongoing membership that you get. And it's that sort of business model is actually really, really great for the clinics. Obviously, you're getting that recurring revenue stream, but also you're getting that ongoing support as a client to keep yourself educated, to learn more, and to actually continue changes as you get older and as your life changes, as your life circumstance changes. The things that you used to be able to do, for example, I've got two small children, the things I used to do before I had two small children, I had so much more time. Whereas now, things I have to do now, I have to condense into the 5 minutes I get to myself a week, and it's very, very different. So it's all about changing with that client, and that gives a lot more success. It's very different to those sort of longevity retreats or things like that you get where you're just detoxing for a week. I'm not saying they aren't great. There's some really good benefits to them, but it's all about the ongoing support that you get. Now, I go back to education being a key factor here, because Julie and I have just finished writing a really incredible course, actually. So this is a course designed for both clients, so people who are interested, health enthusiasts, people who want to learn more about their own health, but even also people who want to take the next step to actually start coaching others into sort of their health and their longevity. And they don't have to be a medical professional or have any qualification, but they just can understand more about longevity and how they can then go about potentially earning some money from that as well. So if we found a lot of health enthusiasts quite like it, and actually are already being asked for advice from their friends and family. And we sort of teach them how to actually structure that and monetize it. So this course is called the Longevity 101 course, Diet Supplements, Lifestyle Diet and Supplements. And this is essentially what it covers. It covers all of the diet, lifestyle, and supplement changes that you need to make to optimize those 5 steps, those diet and lifestyle, hormones, hormones, weight, performance, and cellular aging. And it's really just an educational resource. We don't try and sell any supplements, not trying to sell any tests. It is really just there as an educational piece for people to understand and start taking control of their own health. And then for clients who want to take it a bit further and actually get a little bit more dive in, because that's just a relatively entry level. It's a few £100s to understand more about their own health. They can actually take that, and for a lot of people, that's enough just to get them started. They can do their CGMs, they can even get their own blood tests, and they can start understanding it themselves. Then people who want that extra level of support, that's when we can offer consultations. So through the One Life clinic that we run in Harley Street, we offer consultations. We do it virtually. We have patients in the Middle East, in Europe, in the UK, and we're sort of quite wide reaching because of the virtual network we have.
Can you do it in the US? Can you do it legally in the US? Is it medical or is it consulting? Like, how is it?
So exactly. So we can offer advice in the US. So we don't have a lot of pages in the US just because of the regulations around it. We couldn't offer as much. So we have licenses in the UK, Europe, and the Middle East. So that's most of where our medical consultations are. But what we do offer in the US is more longevity advisory services. And so being a longevity advisor essentially is a qualification that allows you to advise people on health, diet, lifestyle, supplements, and that side of things. And that anybody can do. And that doesn't require regulation in any country, because you're essentially providing advice and guidance for people. So if any of your listeners are interested in becoming a longevity advisor, then we offer a longevity advisor qualification with Apex Medical, and that actually includes the Longevity 101 course, plus extra support and ongoing support with the students to help set up their own practice doing that. And anybody can do that, and you can do it in the UK and consult people in the US. You could do it all over the world, because that is just constant. The difficulty arises when you are trying to prescribe medications or do regulated activities, and that's where the difficulties arrive. And we can only do that, for example, in our clinic in the UK, Middle East, and Europe.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, no, that's really helpful though also. And I find that there's many physicians that will like my physician will be like, what am I ordering for you today? And I just give him the list of the tests. So, having that guidance for someone to say like, okay, ask your physician for a CGM for a month or, 2 14 weeks or I mean 2 14 dayers or get these blood tests. And then are you allowed to like, give guidance based off of the results of those tests? Or where do they go at that point in the US?
Yeah, so they can absolutely give guidance on that. So a lot of these tests now are actually able for clients to go out there and get themselves. There's more providers that are providing direct to consumer devices such as CGMs. So people can actually go online, they can get their own glucose meter, they can put it on, and then again, using the educational resources, they can understand what the readings mean. They can actually educate themselves on this. Now, we can provide advice on that and guidance on that. What we can't do is say that this is medical advice or guidance. So it is not a medical consultation. This is a longevity advisory service. You just have to be very clear that what you're doing is not intended to replace medical advice or guidance, but you detail your own qualifications. And when I say I'm a UK trained sort of surgeon, I'm a longevity medicine physician, no matter where I am in the world, people tend to understand that the advice I'm giving is rooted in science, regardless if it's medical advice or if it's a longevity advisory service.
Of course. No, that's great. I mean, really what you're doing here is I think of it as a house and you're creating a strong foundation to the house. People want to decorate the upstairs bedroom, but like we can't decorate the upstairs bedroom until we have like a strong foundation. So having that strong foundation is going to be able to help people endure different things during different phases of their life. Do you know how I met Julie, by the way?
I don't. Please tell me.
Okay, so and I'm saying this on air because I want everyone else to be inspired to just reach out randomly. So over the summer, I was listening to a podcast with Angela Foster. She's in Surrey, and I was on her podcast twice, and I support all my friends. So I was listening to her podcast, and I heard this woman speaking, and I was like, "Oh, she's a cool chick, she's cool." And she said something about I can't really go outside and do exercise after 7 a.m. because it's 110 degrees here. I said, "You must live in Phoenix because that's where I live and that's how warm it is. It's hot. It's over 40 Celsius here." So I look her up online and I reach out to her and say, "Hi, I'm looking for some healthy friends in the Phoenix area, healthy girlfriends in the Phoenix area. And do you want to be my friend?" And we talk almost every day since then. So I guess I'm just saying that because anyone who's listening, like, why are we want to be healthy? Why do we want to live long? Why do we want to have so much vitality? Why do we want to be successful? It's really to connect better with other people and um, just have a full life, but it really includes other people. So don't hesitate to reach out to people, even when you're not perfect. Like, we don't have to show up perfect. We just have to show up, just sort of how I reached out to you. And I was like, oh, I like what you're doing. Let's talk about it.
Exactly, Jed. I couldn't agree more. And I think, as you say, it all comes down to those social connections. And what we've found is really popular, both as a clinic with our clients, is creating a community. So with our clients, we put them all in touch with each other. If they want to use it, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. They have the option of joining our One Life community. And on that, they can, if they've got their own blood test or they've got their own CGM, they can put the results up and everyone can chip in and give their advice. And we moderate it so we can sort of make sure that there's not any dangerous advice or anything like that that's out there, and we can provide our own input as well, just as a general advisory service. But it's really good. I mean, you're much more likely to quit smoking by having a friend. You're much more likely to lose weight having a friend. You're much more likely to achieve any goal really by having a friend doing it with you. So creating that community has worked really well for our clients, and we replicated that with Apex Medical. When we set up Apex Medical, when we were originally just training just clinical people, so just physicians, nurses, more people that were quite qualified medically, we set up a community for those people. And actually, it's amazing now. I go in and moderate every now and then, but we've got people talking to each other, communicating, offering advice on cases, talking about the latest paper that's just come out, or the latest Peter Attia blog or whatever it might be. And they sort of are really developing that themselves. And I think it's so important to have that community, and people, when they're like-minded, really get together and really quite interested to talk about it with each other.
Yeah, I love that. I really like the community approach, and I see this just growing and getting stronger in the future because the target keeps moving and expanding, and it's a huge area of, medicine and lifestyle that is expanding more and more, and it's almost like a contagious positive disease that's spreading throughout the world, which I love. So on that note, I want you to tell people how to connect with you because I love the fact that you have courses for everyone, for people who
Mhm.
are providers. I have a lot of physician assistants, estheticians, doctors that listen to the podcast, and then many people all around the world that just want to learn more because
Yeah.
we know everyone that your skin represents your internal health. So if you're healthy on the inside, you will glow on the outside. So how can they find you, Matt? Dr. Matt.
Uh, Brilliant. Let me talk about the offerings we have with Apex Medical first, because I think
Please.
that is the real educational content we have. And we have qualifications, so formal certifications, we have courses, and we have individual modules. The qualifications are people who are looking to actually become qualified in longevity medicine. And they can become qualified in three main ways. They could be a longevity advisor, so a qualified longevity advisor. This qualification includes the course I mentioned that we're doing with Julie Gibson Clark, the Longevity 101 course. It also includes a live training day with real patients, consulting them and giving them advice and sort of showing them the limits that you can do as a longevity advisor. It also includes a business booster, so it actually gives a demonstrable how you can set up this as a business and start making money from it. And it also provides ongoing support for any prescription items that they want to include through a prescription service. So this is actually a medical physician that you will refer to. It's one of our trusted partners. They will then look at that prescription, then potentially have a phone call with the client and say, right, I think you're suitable for that, and we'll issue a prescription. So it's a whole package. It's really quite encompassing for people who don't need to be medical professionals. They could just be health enthusiasts. They could be wellness specialists. They could be people who are just interested in the sector who want to have a formal qualification. It also gives you access to using the post nominals ALA. So you can use that after your name to say you are a qualified Apex Longevity advisor. So people would recognize you wherever you are in the world. The second qualification is the longevity clinician. Now, this is for medical professionals, so doctors, nurses globally. Then, depending on the region that your listeners in, can also include pharmacists, can also include physiotherapists, so people who are accredited by some sort of professional body. And this adds on, it builds onto the longevity advisor package or the advisor qualification by including more about prescription items and regulated items that you would need to be a prescriber in order to be able to administer to your clients. It also comes with the same support that you get. So you get the business booster training, you get the live training with real patients, and you get practicing privileges that you can go out and practice with the regulatory bodies that are required in your region. Both the longevity and the advisor and the longevity clinician come with that community support that we talked about. We have monthly meetups that we do virtually. People join and we can just do a big Q&A session to answer any questions they have during that month. So we do that once a month. The longevity fellowship is the big top tier package for clinicians, again, for prescribers, people who prescribe medications. That is taking everything in. So it includes entry level qualification, but it also includes much more advanced detailing, going really into depth about hormones, really into depth about metabolic optimization, really in depth into sort of biohacking or performance optimization, and really in depth into the advanced cellular aging sort of protocols. And we talk really more about all these the advances that we have in longevity. So they're the three main qualifications that we offer at Apex Medical. But if people just want to dip their toe in and just understand a bit more or teach themselves a little bit more, we've also got courses which just cover a few of these sort of topics. Like it might just cover, for example, our foundation course covers menopause and andropause. So it just looks at hormones and some diet and lifestyle associated with that. So those first two steps of the pyramid. Or we've got the advanced, which covers the weight loss, performance optimization, and the cellular aging. Or we've got other modules which they can also buy as well. So if they just want to learn one thing, they just want to learn about about weight loss, for example, they can just buy that as a module on its own. But it really sort of caters for all budgets. So the modules are very, very cheap, very entry level, all the way up to the top tier certifications, which provide you post nominals to use. So talked about ALF already, but if you do the clinician, you can use the post nominals ALC. If you do the fellowship, you can use the post nominals ALF. And this is just a globally recognized qualification that you can use, and clients will know where you've been trained and the protocols you're using.
Okay, so since this is such a growing field, I mean, over the last 5 years, we've seen how much change there's been. If someone is fellowship trained, do you have like a continuing medical education, or how does that work?
That's true. Yeah. So we're certified with CPD UK, and we would have ACCME accreditation from March. So we've just been going. It's about a 1.5 year long process to get accreditation with ACCME, but that is coming to the end now, and we will have that, as I say, next month. So they're both certified, and on our website you'll be able to see the number of hours that everything is accredited for, in terms of points for revalidation, but also give you an estimate in terms of the time frame required to complete these qualifications.
Okay, I know this is a lot, and I don't expect everyone to take notes. So we will have everything in the show notes with all of the links for you to check out. Don't be intimidated. This is great information that gives you the power to take control of your own health. And if it's just information that you desire, it's available to you just with a click of a finger. So anything else you want to add, Dr. Matt, before we close out here?
No, not at all, Joe. It's been a real pleasure to be able to talk about this. And I know some of it can be quite deep and sort of quite intricate, but it is just one of these things that the more you get into it, the more you want to take charge of your own health, the more information that is out there. And everyone's got to start somewhere. And as I say, it is much easier to do it with a friend and with a supporting community around you.
Definitely, yeah. Well, I think it's important that you dive into the intricacies of it because, with the information around us all nowadays with AI and ChatGPT and everything, we have so much information, but this is not necessarily an algorithm. While you have tiers and you have certain ways of doing things, there are many nuances depending on people's personal situation and genetics and all of the other things. So that's why a bespoke personalized plan is going to suit you best. And that's what you do. So thank you for sharing.
It's a real pleasure. I'm trying not to feel too jealous at the temperature you have in Phoenix, as I sit here in -2 degrees in London.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's warm here. It's like 80 degrees. Hold on.
I think Julie was a bit surprised at the weather when she arrived in London last month.
If you're enjoying the Radiance Revealed podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, please give us a review, as that helps others to find this podcast. And if you want to connect with me, please visit my website, drjenhaley.com, or you can find me on Instagram at drjenhaley.
Hello, everyone. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility made for statements made by guests. Neither this podcast nor any of the information contained within it are a substitute for care by a qualified medical professional. This podcast is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or professional advice or services. If you are looking for help in your journey, please seek out a qualified medical practitioner.